Peter.
Thomas, how are you, my friend? Here we are again.
Here we are.
Great guest today, man, coming from the great state of Georgia. How are you, my friend?
Oh, bro. Super excited about tonight's show, everybody. Really appreciate it. So we're 2 days before Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Almost Christmas Eve. Hope everybody is getting together with their friends and family. All right, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern on December 23rd, Tuesday, 7:05 p.m. So we're ready to go. We got Monty Bynum, who's currently the CEO of ADB Training, but he's a former special agent of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, Captain, United States Marine Corps, spent some time as a DEA Task Force Officer, I think it was Gwinnett County as well. So we're really excited to talk to Monty tonight. Couple of things, some topical issues, current, and then we'll get into leadership is going to be the big topic. We'll talk about his career, all his experiences, and how that leadership kind of just evolved over his lifetime in law enforcement and the military. And Pete is a big advocate for leadership and the training, and you'll hear all about Pete stuff. So we're going to have a great episode tonight. So thanks, everybody, for coming. Please comment in the chat. Monty Bynum, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern podcast.
Man, thank you guys. Thank you so much for the blowing me up. That's fantastic. I've been watching you guys, and we've been circling each other, and I keep everybody telling me that I had to connect with you guys. So thank you so much for having me on, guys.
No, it's a pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you guys on. Yeah, there's an echo here, so I got to figure out where that's coming from. Let me see if that's me.
That's you, brother. That's you. Tommy will fix that right away. Seriously, Monty, it's good. Like what Tommy's about to say is true, man. Like I've been a huge student of leadership, mostly because I survived some really bad leadership. And man, I know some folks think you're either born a leader or you're not. That's not true. I mean, some people have natural leadership tendencies, I think. But man, I learned a lot by going through some really good leadership training. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on just leadership broadly and some of your experiences, obviously. Yeah. I know we want to touch on a couple of hot topics too, but Tommy's going to go to the menu first.
Yeah, we got to go to the menu. So Monty, as you guys will find out, is a fitness guru. And Monty, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, with your career in the Marine Corps and your law enforcement career at GBI, you clearly, and especially leadership and all the talking that you've been doing, you clearly talk the talk. But with the biggest arms on LinkedIn, I think you walk the walk too. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the truth.
That's funny. No, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Pete, you got my drink. That is my drink that I normally go to. It's a funny story how I actually came to a man drink, because I started off being the girl drink drunk. So I graduated to a real drink, as my brother said. Man, you got to get a real drink. So that's good.
Yeah. I'm doing the Bombay gin and tonic for tonight. Sir.
Yeah, I'm doing Los Amantes Mezcal, Pete. I know you're a big Mezcal fan, so I thought I would try to match up with you tonight, but you threw me a curveball. Monty's going H2O. He's keeping it. And again, responsible drinking, everybody. Just because it is in the tavern, please don't overindulge. Don't go too far. No drinking and driving. And if you're drinking because you're feeling bad, don't let that happen either. Reach out, ask for help. Pete,
man, it is okay to not be okay, man. We all see things that affect us in different ways, man. It's a tough job, tough profession, leave scars. So it's okay to not be okay. But what's not okay is not to do something about it.
Hey.
Talk to somebody, man. And I know some people don't want to talk to their department. Talk to a priest. Talk to a cleric.
Talk to one of us.
Yeah, a friend.
The three of us. I will definitely leave my information. Talk to me. You guys may hang up and say, you know what, life's not that bad. After 30 minutes with Monty, life's not that bad. I got to stop talking to him.
Yeah.
So talk to me.
Well, look, and let's be honest, Monty, you come from the military background, and some of our listeners do as well. Hey, man, I got to give them credit, because the military, look, we didn't talk about stuff like this in the past. It was taboo. Hey, we're the police. We're the people that people come to for help. We don't ask for help.
That's right.
The military were the first ones to recognize that people get PTSD and other issues that need to be dealt with, and we're chasing them. We're behind them. We're not quite caught up with them yet. Neither entity is perfect at that level yet, but we just got to keep getting there, man. Because look, you came into the profession whole. You deserve to leave as whole as you can leave.
Say it again, Pete.
You came into this profession whole, and you deserve to leave as whole as you can leave.
And that's one of my tenets. You came in, you weren't broken. We broke it. We fix it. We got to start owning that 100%. And we leadership from, the bottom all the way to the top. We broke it. We put you through all the psychological testing. You were deemed fit and ready to go. So if you come out or going out with problems, guess what? We broke it. We got to fix it.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. So we're getting there. It's still a long way to go, but we're getting there as a professional.
All right. So before we get into the big leadership stuff and then your career, Monty, Pete wanted to bring up, and we always try to do a little bit of topic, current events, stuff that's going on that's interesting. We don't do too deep of a dive, but just, raise awareness and kind of, it's always something that we just can't believe is happening. So can you believe the size of the Somali fraud scheme in Minnesota?
So it's unbelievable. It is completely unbelievable. So most of my career was spent in investigations. Most of that was drug investigations. Later on, I got into money laundering, and it blows my mind that nobody was watching this. It was.
Well, do you think nobody was watching it?
I'm sorry?
Do you think nobody was watching it, or they are part of it?
No, I think, yeah, at some point, there's so many systems in place. At some point, someone was aware and participating, and again, you know how things go. We start, putting that out there. That's just really hard to believe. That much money.
Yeah. And
we're talking cartel level money. That's cartel level money.
It is. And the sad part is, according to many reports, they were whistleblowers. They came forward and they were told to just be quiet and go stand in the corner.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to offend certain groups. Look, the problem that I have
Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't think it was offend. They didn't want to turn off the spigot because, again, I'm getting mine. Pete, Monty and Tommy are getting theirs. Yeah. So Pete, just be quiet.
No, you wonder how much of it was diverted back into the political machine, because I'm sure some of it was. But I mean, the sad part is, look, this is our tax money. People work hard for their money. Yeah. And look, I don't mind paying taxes. I want to help my fellow man. I want to help, protect us from police, paying for the police and whatnot. But, it's not a bottomless pit, I mean, so the fact that they say maybe upwards of $9 billion, that is a ton of money. And that people came forward and were told to shut up is really appalling. Like, I would like to see this thing thoroughly investigated, like a real deep dive forensic audit. And I would like to see anybody that got money that they shouldn't have gotten because they scammed and lied. I'd like to see them prosecuted. I'm tired of we're going to investigate this. Well, and then in the end, there's never any fallout for the people.
How about this? How about we go a little bit further now? Because again, me as a CEO, we own 5 companies, but I can't go back and say, well, I'm not responsible. If I happen to divert all these funds, I'm not responsible. Sorry, I'm just a CEO. That's not going to fly. How about we now hold politicians responsible? Not your butts on the line. Okay. Now, if you don't want to look, okay, well, should something happen, you're going to be in the crosshairs as well. But all the people that are scamming, we got that. We know that. But how about the person that just, took a willful blindfold eye and didn't listen to Pete, who was whistleblowing? So we've got to stand up and start holding everyone accountable. And that's what we owe to the people. It's not about like, hey, Democrats, Republicans, I don't care. Exactly. You're abusing, the little old lady that's paying her taxes and doing it. And now there's $9 billion going out the window, and we're not taking care of our veterans and our cops. Cops are having to beg for things they need, like bulletproof vests, training that they absolutely need, equipment. Come on. No.
And well, I know Tim Walsh, they spoke to him and he's like, hey, I'm the governor rather, and I'm ultimately accountable. But yet, according to some of the reporting, he was one of the people that basically helped shut some of the people up that were reporting this. So he hasn't been held accountable. He's not a good leader if that's the stance you're going to take. So look, I hope that he is held accountable to what degree he deserves to be, and anyone under him is. Because again, your job as leaders is to make sure people are doing the right thing, not to give away the shop.
Right.
It's just terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
It's abusive. But again, if we don't, start taking much stronger stances on those government leaders, not the perpetrator, not just the perpetrators. We know that we're going to come after you. That's a given. Right. If we don't start, it's just going to continue to happen. We have got to we've got to convince these prosecutors whether on the state level or federally, hey, no, somehow, whether it's civil or criminal, we've got to hold these guys really responsible. It's just, again, as a business owner, as a CEO of multiple businesses, I cannot take funds out and then say, well, no, I'm not responsible. I have to account for everything that, it goes. I'm totally responsible.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's currently fraud, waste, and abuse is the tagline for all of this stuff. I suggested on a LinkedIn post about a week ago, they need to add corruption to the back end of that. It's no longer fraud, waste, and abuse. It's fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption.
And it might
it's
be
pretty
far
obvious.
more
To
than
your
that.
point earlier, Monty.
Yeah, it might be far more than that, because they also had whistleblowers that work for TSA who say that packages containing millions of dollars were sent to Somalia. Like,
Right.
and you leave the country with $10,000 in cash or more, you have to explain why, or they're going to seize it.
Right.
Well, this money was allowed to leave. What were they funding? Were they funding the campaign for the next guy who wants to run for office? Because there, you got to build your own little small army, because it's basically warlord territory. Or were they funding Al-Shabaab, which is a terror organization? That's what I would love to know. Like, where was that money going? Was some of that money being funneled into organizations that want to hurt Americans here on American soil? I mean, Monty, you're a former military, you're a Marine. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. I know that, brother. So, I mean, that's got to really offend you. It certainly offends me as a 9/11 survivor.
Absolutely.
But it's just enough, man. So, yeah, we're all on the same page. People need to be held accountable and fully accountable.
Right.
So I want to hit a comment. Here. Add beauty in the struggle too. Use your God-given podcasting talent and call out what really happens, Ron. So, Ron, I think you've done that. Ron Layson, Monty, just so you know, he's one of the hosts on the Executive Perspective. Two police NYPD executives call out the good and the bad. When good things are good, they call out good. When they call out bad, we're all raising this issue. Now, this channel is more on the positive side, highlighting careers and leadership and good stuff. And that's why we do this little segment on the front to raise a little bit of awareness. We're not going to do a deep dive into and dissect and break down the scheme. We're also going to talk about some voting fraud, maybe a little bit in about a minute or two. That's exactly what we're doing, raising awareness. For the voters out there, we raised your awareness. Go out and do your own research and vote appropriately in the next election. That's your recourse. So those are those God-given podcasting talent. So we're raising awareness. We're having these conversations. We're going to dive into leadership. Anything more on the Somali, Minnesota? I think there's something coming out of Elon came out and said, if you think Minnesota's bad, wait till you get a load of what's going on in California with the homeless. $13 billion a year. Nothing gets done, as we all know on that. But we'll keep going. We'll move on from there. What about Georgia? Do we think, is this a true story? Is this a legit story? 315,000 votes coming out of there?
That's crazy. Let me tell you something, Tommy. You know this. I grew up in Yonkers, New York, the fourth largest city in the state of New York, right? And its population was 195,000 people. So you're going to tell me that the certifications of fraudulent votes that double or almost double the size of the city of Yonkers happened in a presidential election? How does this happen? Like, there needs to be checks and balances. Because look, we all get that one right. It's a very sacred right, the right to vote. And if your vote is worthless because of cheating, then there's a huge problem, man, and it needs to get fixed. So I hope this is also thoroughly investigated and people held accountable. But as we've seen with government investigations, kind of like when I blew the whistle on Fast and Furious, some of those people still work for the government. I don't know that anyone's going to be held accountable for this nonsense either. I would love to see it happen, and I think that the tide might turn when that happens, but who knows, man? I'm hopeful, but I'm also doubtful.
Well, you're down there, Monty. Don't worry about so there's usually some good comments. There's a couple of trolls from time to time. We are First Amendment free speech, attack ideas all day. As soon as they start attacking people and getting silly, then we just ask them to leave or whatever. Give them a little timeout or something like that. But we
it's all good.
We like,
it's all good. I mean, for the most part, I mean, again, short of calling for someone's death, that's
of course.
That is the beautiful thing. We need to really lean into that. I really think we need to lean into that. That's a big topic. Again, we don't have that issue that's happening in the UK. They're actually starting to clamp down on dissension and free speech, and so I'm okay with that. But Pete, Tommy, really got to look at what's going on with these votes, really, truly, and not just cursory. Dive into it. That is fundamental. We have to make sure that we have free and fair elections. And we cannot, we can't pussyfoot around that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, coming out of Georgia, they're alleging that there's 315,000 votes that weren't properly processed, some technicalities. Some people are calling it an administrative error. It doesn't matter. We all know that there was something going on. Exactly what in many, many states. It's bad. I beg the government, please get your voting squared away and straightened out. Beauty in the struggle. Calling people cowards and calling people clowns is trolling, but you can keep doing it. Nobody really cares. We're going to keep going. So let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Monty Bynum, Gwinnett County, was that your first job? Why don't you tell us where you grew up?
No.
Oh, okay. So why don't you tell us where you grew up and how you became a cop?
Yeah, I grew up in the greatest state, in the world, the most prominent state, in all of United States. You guys probably are very, very jealous of me from where I grew up. I know that. I can see that,
I have the coolest state police cars. That's for damn sure.
I grew up in the greatest state, the number one state. Grew up in Delaware. So we were the first state. We were the first state. That's why we're number one, because we are. I grew up in Delaware. I actually started my career, law enforcement career, in Ocean City, Maryland. And what a lot of people don't know is in the summertime, that becomes the second largest city in Maryland. And what they do is they recruit juniors and senior college, juniors and seniors with criminal justice majors, and they put you through this abridged academy. They give you a gun and badge and go out and conquer. What was really cool during the summer that I, first was down there, they were asking for some CID detectives and some narcotics guys. And luck have it, I got a narcotics, gig, and that started my love for narcotics. And spent some time down there in Maryland, did some undercover work in a neighboring city, and eventually came back to my hometown in Newcastle County and was a cop there. And decided, we had the craziest schedule, and decided, hey, I really wanted to grow, and I wanted to push the limits. And I decided that I was going to quit, finish college, and then go after and chase my dream of being a commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. And I did that. And I obtained that. And it was just before 9/11. So I went in, and things were pretty laxed. And, within 60 seconds, it seemed like we ramped up, and the whole world changed. Had a pretty fantastic career, learned a lot, grew up, got trained to lead people and do all that, and eventually came back home, or came back to Georgia, made that my home, and came back to law enforcement. At the same time, during this whole period, I actually had several businesses, and that's kind of an interesting story as well too. Eventually, I ended my career with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and loved every minute of it. And I think cops, law enforcement folks, I tell this to my fiance all the time. Cops and Marines, they can do no wrong. We're perfect. I know that's not true, but I like to live in that bubble. I like, I believe in unicorns and rainbows for the most part. So yeah.
Well, Pete has been saying all the time. Pete says all the time. He's like, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. So, yeah. However, I don't think our internal affairs, not just for us in New York, but across the country, I think we all stand by and wait for them to do their job, because I don't want to be the one to say, get rid of this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just want to do my job and stay in my lane and not get involved in that drama. And where is the internal affairs? Where's the oversight? Where's the OGs or whatever, the OIGs? I mean, that's what I think one of the problems is, not the problem, but a problem. Would you agree with that?
Let me ask you to do this, Monty. Only because, look, I know about GBI because I went through the academy, the ATF academy, with some GBI folks. I worked for a former GBI guy who was my ASAC when I first got out to Phoenix. When I was a head of training for ATF, we recruited and hired a bunch of GBI folks.
Yeah,
real talented, the real deal. But a lot of our listeners are from New York, and they might not fully understand like what the functions of GBI is. So would
Sure.
you mind just giving an overview of like GBI's roles, like what you consider its areas of specialty to be,
Yeah.
just for the 30,000-foot view?
Yeah,
Good job, Pete.
absolutely. So essentially, the long short of it is, GBI, for lack of a better term, is essentially the FBI, but on the state level. We are the backup to every other agency. There are certain crimes that we have original jurisdiction, narcotics, crimes against kids, some elderly, abuse, some things like that. And technically, state domestic, terrorism, but generally we are by invitation. Hey, we need assistance on this homicide or this. There's a lot of departments within Georgia that don't have the resources. It's not that they don't have the heart or the will; they just don't have necessarily the resources, the manpower, and everything like that. It's good to be able to call an independent agency to come and investigate, a homicide or an officer-involved shooting. They can keep a little bit of distance and allow GBI to come in and look at this impartially and investigate, whatever. So it was for me, fantastic opportunity. It really was. I love investigating drugs. I could pin my ears back and go after these guys. I think it's one of the worst crimes ever. Second, probably only to, crimes against kids and human trafficking. I really do. So it's an amazing organization of amazingly talented people. Everybody has to have a degree, and they're very motivated. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, when I was down there, 'cause I used to have to go down to Fletchy, which is also in Georgia, in Brunswick. Once a month, I'd have to go down there for a week, and I would spend a lot of time with the trainees. I just like it. Candidly, by that time, I had 30-something years in law enforcement. It just kind of refreshed my batteries to see the new, fresh faces. But it's funny because some of them weren't so fresh. Some of them had a lot of time in law enforcement. And I remember there was one young lady who was going through the academy who, while she was a trainee at our academy, was on forensics files for a great homicide case. She worked as a GBI agent.
Yeah.
So here you have her instructors are all sitting there watching her on TV about a great case that she worked as a homicide investigator, and they're training her as like a brand new hire recruit. Which, to be honest with you, ATF did a pretty good job of not treating the experienced folks like brand new people. We did to some degree because hey, you're new to ATF. But we also really tried to respect the experience of the people that we brought in.
But you said something earlier about refreshing your battery, and again, it's good when you're older, you're humble, and you can learn something from anybody. And that's again, if we're staying humble, we should be able to learn something from everybody, even the brand new rookie. If we're really open, hey man, shoot, this rookie's really on his basics. I need to get back to my basics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of our listeners said, speaking of being humble, said you're a humble man, and he was a little bit interested in your military service. I mean, you left the captain, so I mean, which is pretty impressive, Marine Corps captain. So tell us a little bit about your time in the Marines. Obviously, you led people at different ranks. I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ron. It was awesome, man. It was the best organization ever. I was so humbled to be able to work with these Eagles. It's not like all of them. I mean, men and women. Can you imagine just being surrounded every single day with badass people that are getting after it and so patriotic? Excellent leadership was the rule there, like top down. Bad leadership, that was the exception, which is awesome. You can learn from anyone. I had enlisted guys that I learned from from the beginning to the end. I came in literally a year before 9/11, 2 years before 9/11. I was actually the officer of the day. That meaning essentially we stayed up, all night with an enlisted guy just in case someone from all around the country. Hey, they're calling into Camp Lejeune for some help. Hey, we're stranded. There's this or that. I need travel, whatever. So I was the officer of the day when they hit 9/11, and everything changed because quite frankly we were on peacetime. We really everybody, all the military was in a peacetime stance and not very. We weren't the way we are now. So everybody grew up real quick and took it serious because quite honestly, we're a little bit soft. And so I had a great experience because my law enforcement, I was, guys, when I went in, I had 5 years of law enforcement, 3 of which I was already a detective. So, it was a little bit different. I already knew some of the games they would play essentially through the training. I also knew to shut my mouth and be humble and learn from everybody, and actually trust those guys that were under me, that I was supervising, and understand that I was responsible for these guys and I could learn a lot from these guys. And I think it really helped me kind of move up and do different things. I thought differently because I brought my perspective as a cop and as a detective. I was selected for a couple different units. I had a chance to, I was sent down to CENTCOM, which is essentially where they manage the entire Middle East and those, battle plans. I had a chance to actually be on General Frank's protection detail and all that, because we didn't have that formed. A lot of neat experiences, a lot of opportunities. At that time, we just weren't the military that you see. I got to really emphasize that. So we were open to all kind of ideas and how are we going to do this? How are we going to go after the bad guys? Who are the bad guys? What do they do? We didn't know. We didn't know what we had now. So we were just getting into it. But.
Wow. Let me ask you this. My son was in the Coast Guard for a while, and it was interesting. The Coast Guard pushes a lot of leadership authority down to enlisted folks. Believe it or not, like for example, the station in Montauk,
yep.
Right? It's a small boat station. It's a full rescue station.
Yeah.
Was run by an enlisted man. They
Absolutely.
had no officers on site.
Nope.
My daughter, who was in Army intelligence, loved it. She deployed to Syria, Iraq, did some really cool stuff. Although I don't know the nature of everything she did because she couldn't tell me. But she always used to say that in some ways it was the enlisted folks there that had a lot of sway. They used to call it the E4 Mafia. Yep. In the Marine Corps. Like my son used to say, the chief petty officers were the ones that run the Coast Guard. In the Marine Corps, what's the rank that has like the most sway? I know the officers call the shots in the long run, but I know there's a lot of experience in certain ranks. Which one is it in the Marine Corps that has the most weight? That's not an officer.
Oh, it's definitely it's a gunny or yeah, I would say that the gunnery sergeant is has a ton of sway. Again, it's the enlisted there. We definitely trust our enlisted beyond. We believe that that's the backbone, and that's why when people say, well, they're not a leader, I'm like, what are you talking about? The lance corporal is a leader.
Yes.
The corporal is the leader, because again, we teach here 3 principles in the Marine Corps that we understood: lead from the front, officers eat last, and we're going to die. So it's my job as the captain that my lieutenants, that all my sergeants, everybody below knows, each other's job. They also know my job. So when I die, if we were all wiped out, the corporal knows, okay, what Captain Bynum's job is and what hire needs him to do. They're not stuck. We saw that what happened, we had real-time examples with the, Ukrainian-Russian war. They wiped out all the commanders in the Russian army for a while, and it was stalemate. Nobody could make a decision. We absolutely treasure decentralized command. And these guys, they love it.
How much training does the average enlisted person get on leadership? Because that's something I think we fail at in law enforcement. Like in ATF, we implemented this thing, leadership begins day one, which was a very short leadership course for brand new agents. But when I was a cop and a detective in the NYPD, I got zero leadership training.
Yeah.
Zero.
Nothing.
We all did, right? We all did. I mean, again, I was a cop first. We were over here, scrapping for like that one company, street crimes or whatever it was called, way back in the day, just to get some little training, let alone anything about leadership. From day one, those guys have a reading list. When I say those guys, the enlisted guys, all the way up again to general, just to be in the room, just to qualify. So if you're not hitting certain markers of leadership, not just reading it, but living it, you're ranked by your compatriots there. That's the other thing. If you're deemed not worthy, they are not going to trust you. They're not going to let you lead other Marines. That's the most. See, they get it. Marines get it. That they are not going to trust you with their most valuable asset. It is not the planes. It's not the artillery. It's not the rifles. It's not the jets or the helicopters. It's the Marines. That's why they never, in the last 40 years, haven't missed a recruiting goal.
Right.
Their recruiting message is very clear. We are a badass unit, period. See if you're worthy to be one of us. Doesn't matter if you're a Marine cook, you're a rifleman. Doesn't matter if you're a pilot, you're a rifleman. Doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, you're a rifleman. You're a rifleman and you are a Marine Corps. You're a Marine. That's the highest level that you could possibly get. That, and again, it creates this culture that brings everybody back, that self-corrects. That's the thing that we miss here. And we can do that. No one's taught us how to do that in law enforcement. And so we've seen if we have standards and why we're doing it. We just can't say, hey, Pete, go do this. Why are we doing it? Okay. Right. So that we're all on the same page and we understand like this language. Why are we doing it? And you understand about, leadership or tactics or, setting up a machine gun or small unit leadership. That's why you have to read this stuff. That's why it's important all the way through.
Well, hey, man, like I've had bosses when you ask them the why, their answer is because I said so. And that's not a way to get somebody to internalize the mission.
That's really good. That's great leadership. I mean, again,
awesome.
Yeah, no, I've seen when they point to their collar brass or they point to the stripes on their sleeve. I used to hate that. But I'll tell you, to give credit to Marine Corps leadership, after Fast and Furious, like really just put ATF in a bad spot and deservedly so. Obama appointed a guy named B. Todd Jones, Marine Corps colonel, to come in and be our director. And he led like a Marine. And it's funny, you mentioned Leaders Eat Last. He actually made us all read a book called Leaders Eat Last.
That's right.
And when people didn't trust the leadership at ATF because that shit show, Fast and Furious, he brought me back and put me in charge of leadership training. And the first thing I asked him is like, hey, man, boss, if they don't trust the leaders, they don't trust how the leaders are made. Can we outsource some of this training? And then what he did was he said, yeah, absolutely. So we brought in, like I mentioned before we went live, we brought in the Army War College. We brought in the Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership at the Navy Academy. We brought in the Marine Corps. We brought in the Air Force Academy. And let me tell you something. Because this is going to sound like I'm exaggerating, like I'm full of shit. I went through leadership training at ATF. One of them was a good course. The rest of them sucked. And when you got told, hey, you're going to training, you're like, fuck. I mean, the only thing you looked forward to was the drinks that would happen after the class at night and some of the the networking opportunities, because we were a nationwide organization. So it's good to know people in different parts of the world. But the reality, going through those courses that were instructed by military leaders, and sometimes with some help from some of our folks, was, again, it's going to sound like I'm full of shit, life-changing.
Yeah.
Because when you learn these things about leadership that work at work, they work at home. They work with your family. They work with your friends. They work with self-development. Like leadership, it sounds like bullshit. No. I would say leadership isn't something, it's everything. Because good leaders, man, you would follow into the freaking fires of hell.
Well, that's exactly why do the Marines have such a legendary history? That's why. Yeah. Because it's expected. Why do we have folks like Chesty Puller and all, again, Mad Dog Mattis, these guys, and you look at, General Mattis, he's an educated warrior. I really don't, I'm not sure which I would fear, more, going up against him playing chess or tactically. He's a badass.
Yeah.
And these are the things that we love and we aspire, to be.
And the thing about Chesty, am I right about this? He also washed out of the first OCS. Yeah. And he went through the second time. Yeah. Which a good friend of mine, I'm going to do a shout out to Timmy Hardiman, retired inspector NYPD, was his hero. And I sat in his office one day and he told me everything about Chesty. So failure isn't failure. It's a lesson. Keep going.
Right. As long as what's very cool about the Marine Corps is we get our guys from, most people don't realize that we get our officers from the street. 80%, 85% of our officers come from college, into the street, into OCS, and then TBS. We don't get them from the academy. So we don't have quite the polish. And we love, again, the fact that, we were born in Philadelphia in Tun Tavern, in a tavern.
Yeah.
We really love, being rebels and getting after it and being badass. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you get to be a mindless Neanderthal. There's nothing more devilish and nothing more creative than having a Marine and giving him a challenge or her a challenge. That's exactly what happened after 9/11. When I showed up there, like I said, guys, we didn't know what was going on. I show up to CENTCOM, and this is where they run the entire battle space in the Middle East. And up on the roof, we had machine gun pits. Security is done. It's an Air Force base in Tampa, Florida, and we have machine guns on top of the main building. But we had nobody up there, and they weren't manned. And when we went to inspect them, they were rusted out. And when we asked the security force, the Air Force guys, what's going on, they're like, hey, we don't know how to use them, employ them. So I was in charge of a multi-service, team for the security, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Army, and I had 2 Marines. So I, gave the manual for the 60 cal machine guns that were on top. Gave them 2 hours, read through it, broke down the machine guns, had them all oiled up and fixed up, and they were going to give a class on. Now, mind you guys, the Marine Corps doesn't have M60s in our TO. That's the type of mindset the Marines have. They just want a challenge. They'll get after it. They'll figure it out, and did a phenomenal job being able to, teach these guys. And that was the goal that the Marine Corps understood, that mindset. And we can get to that. And imagine that that's what we were recruiting, by the way. We weren't getting folks in law enforcement. We had that ultimate performing mindset that, hey, I don't want just a job that's 9 to 5 or some benefits. No, I want the very best. And so now you get the very best that comes in there, and then we train them on leadership and to take care of each other, and we train them that team aspect, right? That Pete is responsible for making sure that I do everything I need to be doing as a teammate, and so forth and so on. How good we could actually be. We're not going to be perfect, but we'll be a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I was always impressed with is how much time an officer in the military spends in a classroom. Like when I went through the Army War College program, I didn't get a master's degree or anything like that. I went through like a certificate program there. And a lot of the guys I was there had done fellowships at different think tanks. One of them was assigned to the NATO War College for a while. Again, just learning. It amazed me how much time they spent in chairs, learning leadership techniques, learning their craft. It's an investment. And look, you're training people now today, and I want to hear about some of that. But like when I was the head of training for ATF, I know that we struggled because we were fat. When B. Todd Jones first came in and there was needs to fix things, we got money. But when the budget would go to shit, the first thing that goes out the window is the training budget. Right. And then you're struggling. Right. So so when the military continues and consistently trains folks, you're setting them up. And look, not everybody's going to get it. You know that, and I know that. But you're setting them up for success. When you just say, hey, just go figure it out, and you don't set them to training, you're setting them up for failure. And you touched on it earlier. Right. You can't blame someone for failing at their mission if you didn't give them the tools to get the job done and the proper direction for them to understand what the mission is. Yeah. And I see it time and time again. And I know you teach these things now. You must see it all the time too. Yeah. A lot of times agencies fail to do that and fail miserably at it.
We don't know any better. Yeah. But Pete, Tom, we don't know any better. It's like literally it's the first day of the academy, and we give the person a gun and expect them to know they've never touched a gun before. They don't know what are you talking about. We give them the position of leadership. Hey, you're now the captain. That's literally how it happens. Hey, congratulations. I just want to let you know you got promoted to captain. Great. What am I doing? How do I actually? And I've heard this before. We've started something called the Leadership Collective, and that's for police executive. I've heard these guys in confidence tell me, I truthfully don't. I have imposter syndrome. No one's really taught me what I'm supposed to be really doing. I haven't been trained. They don't go to a formal training on how to do this. They never have. If you think about it, when you've gotten promoted to corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, there wasn't hey, you go away for several months, or it's maybe a couple days, maybe a week. It's not enough. And some of these guys, are doing whisper down the lane. Tommy's telling Pete, and Pete's telling me, hey, Monty, You really need to keep your distance from these guys. You can't let them, know that you don't know what you don't know, and you can't. You got to be very formal. No, it's the other way around. It's very personal. We're in the human being business, boys. And I don't understand why that doesn't get into everybody's head. Being in military, being in law enforcement, we are in the human being business. We probably ought to be very good with human beings. We're actually not. I'm telling Pete to, what? You're just not empathetic enough. You're not caring enough, to the public. Meanwhile, I treat him like shit. I don't know anything that's going on in his world. I have no idea. I have no idea that his mom is dying. And he's being crushed by all this. Why? Because I'm not dealing with him as a human. I'm dealing with him as an asset, as a piece of machinery. And that's really the hard thing. It's much easier just to treat them like an asset. Hey, be here on this time. This is your expectations. If you don't do it, you're going to get disciplined. Who wants that?
Yeah.
When you have the right culture, that culture polices itself. In the 6 years that I was, affiliated with the Marine Corps, 3 times did it ever get to me. It would be a true embarrassment if it ever had to get to me. That they self-police. When that culture's so strong, we self-police.
That's huge. Let me tell you, and that's something that I have to be honest with you. I saw it a little bit in the NYPD, not enough.
Yeah.
I saw it a lot more when I was a housing cop, which was a small department. As a smaller department, you had a little bit more intimate relationship, and you call people out a little bit more freely. But I didn't see it very much at ATF. And like one of the things that always bothered me, like you'd have a leader that's failing, right? And they would very often get whacked. We call it whacked. Get brought into headquarters.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you a single instance I know where one of these people who failed, and some of it was bad stuff, like just really stupid stuff they're lucky they didn't go to jail for, where the discussion was had like, hey, you failed, and we're bringing you in here because we need to keep an eye on you and you need to learn the job again. It was always, hey, we're bringing you in, don't worry about it. We just need a guy for this job and you're the perfect guy. It was never that difficult conversation. And I just think the reality is that sometimes those difficult conversations have to happen. And it just blew my mind how many leaders wouldn't have it. And then the funny thing is, a lot of them, when you would talk to them, it was like, well, I don't want to get filed on. That was a big thing. You don't want to get filed on. You don't have a grievance, an EEO suit or something like that. So they would push it off on the next guy or the next guy. What they didn't realize was at some point that bad employee is going to file on somebody. And it's probably going to include you and the entire chain of command, like anybody that touched him in that time anyway, number one. So a lot of times it just bothered me that managers who were paid to have those difficult conversations wouldn't do it. And the problems would just stay there. And then, as you know, because this is something that I think is a cancer in many professions, but in law enforcement as well. When you have a bad performer and everybody knows they're a bad performer, and you have a leader that doesn't address, because at this point, you're not a leader if you're not addressing, you're a manager. So you're a manager that's not addressing the bad performer.
Right.
Everybody sees it. That is the most toxic thing I think that happens in a work unit, is when everybody else knows that Pete's the cancer, but the boss won't have a conversation with the cancer. So everybody else is like, look, I'm seeing it. What the fuck is wrong with the boss? So then the other dynamic I would see is then people say, I'm checked out. I'm not going to follow this guy anymore.
Right.
So as you know, people want to be led.
Right.
So they will find someone else in that work unit to follow. Sometimes it could be the curmudgeon, the last guy that you want running the team. So I mean, that's the crapshoot that I never understood why weak leaders don't dig in and just fucking lead or go away.
That's perfect. You said it though, and this is something that I was, and I coach, chiefs and deputy chiefs and all that now. And one of them called me the other day. He was really upset, and he said, he basically was supervising his lieutenants and his sergeants, and he just didn't get. He's like, I don't get it. They're not engaging. They're not doing what I told them what to do. I have talked to him, exactly what to do. Well, if we have hired well, and you didn't slip in and there were some kind of, bomb, the only reason we don't take action, we forget this, we don't know what to do. And this is where it's painful. It's hard. Now, as the leader, let's just assume he is the very best leader. He's going to have to get down into the weeds with these guys and train. But it's also a good opportunity. I get to retrain this guy really how to do it. Now it's going to be harder. He's got to like actually walk them through everything and coach them. And if we had a coaching mentality instead of a disciplinary, like that's going to fix anything. You imagine someone standing over and swacking it over the head instead of like, hey, brother, you know, the reason why you're not hitting the ball is you're not, you know, turning your hips and everything. Oh, damn, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're knocking the ball out of the, you know, out of the park. Coaching. So, you know, and I said, look, we got to get down to the weeds. The only reason why they're not engaging, they don't know what to do. It seems like, well, they know the, you know, what they're supposed to do. And that doesn't tell us anything. I can read the instructions on putting together something, but I don't know exactly how to really play the game.
Yep. Let me jump in here. So 2 things. I timed out beauty because we have what should be a very highly respected servant to the community and our country. We're having to talk about leadership. We're trying, as you heard Monty say, we're trying to save lives here because of the type of leadership that needs to worry about their human assets. And to have a sidebar chat trolling episode is just really ineffective, inefficient, and really silly and immature. We're listening to Monty and Pete have a really great conversation. I was listening. So that's why they're timed out. They're not timed out for what they said. It's just annoying and really infantile, to be quite honest with you. All right. Now, that being said, I want to raise an issue of the art of coaching, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban. To your point, they don't understand. Not because I told them what to do. And what they talk about in that documentary about the art of coaching is he's talking to a defensive back, and he says to the defensive back, hey, Bill Belichick is, how long have you been in this league? I think it's 3 or 4 years, right? Yeah. And he goes, yeah. He goes, 3 years. This is my 4th year, coach. And he's like, well, welcome to the Patriots. He goes, how's things going? He goes, this is the first time in 4 years, in my 3 years or previously, that I understand is what is expected of me.
Wow.
And he said, you guys are light years ahead of the coaching that I was getting in the, and I thought about this and I said, lives are not at stake, but millions and millions of dollars are at stake.
Yeah.
And bad coaches couldn't even be motivated by money either, if not lives. So like lives are certainly more important than money. That's a bad failure if they're not coaching to the point where it saves lives and saves your own life, saves the community members' life. But they're not even motivated by money either to be a great coach. And this kid, this defensive back sitting there going, I'm so glad to be here. I finally understand my job.
Well, that's the genius behind those 2 coaches you brought up, you know, Saban and Belichick, is they really understood the essence of coaching. You can understand to a certain level, top level, and you're just putting pieces in, you know, high level, you know, performance. You really want to, the Belichick didn't always have the greatest athletes, but he knew how to push and, you know, tweak and do all these things. That was really, that's what we're missing, the opportunity. Yeah. We've got the guys that really, and gals that really, I mean, they got, you know, college degrees and experience and the flexibility and this great mindset that if we actually, you know, showed them and taught them and coached them, not just through the academy, but all the way out and continue all the way through, all the way up to chief, and coach them on how to turn around and coach and the responsibility of building a team. Imagine where we would be. Guys, we should be a complete dumpster fire. It's because of the people that we attract, the servant leaders that come to this industry, that we're not. Right. Now, imagine if we actually stop being, to your point, Tommy, if we stop being amateurs and started being professionals. See, the military doesn't take that, the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps doesn't take that, you know, lightly. So they went and they send out the very best Marines to be recruiters because they are the first filter. Mm-hmm. So they went out and attract, unlike what some people think, anybody with a heartbeat, no, you don't qualify. You're not going to make it through Marine Corps. You're not going to have the fortitude or the mindset or the heart. So they're looking for the best of best. And now that we get them in, we're going to pour into these guys and we're going to coach them all the way through. Now, that doesn't mean like, hey, rub their tummy and cocoa. In fact, when we really coach them, that person with that type of mindset wants to be driven.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need this discipline. Oh man, we're in the weeds. If I've got to crack you down, hey, let me come talk to you, Pete. Your reports are late. You're going to get suspended. Boy, that's really going to motivate him. But how about this, Pete? What's going on? Hey, I'm sorry, boss. My mom's dying. I haven't told anybody. Okay, hey brother, I got you. Let's peel this back. Let's figure out how we can, work on you. That's what we need to be doing. We're in the human being business, and we don't get into that. We don't share that. And guess what? When Pete gets back on track, because he knows the standards, and we know him, if we hired well, he's going to appreciate that. And guess what? He's going to be so loyal to us. He's going to have such, loyalty to us, and know that we really did care. It wasn't just, hey, we're family. Meanwhile, we kick him in the butt.
Right. Monty, let me ask you this, because you train a lot of leaders and you're respected in your field, which is why I'm thrilled to have you here. And like I said, I'm a student of leadership, and I still have a long way to go till I reach the apex. I think it's a destination. It's a journey rather, not a destination.
Right.
But I know that in leading, there are mentor type leaders and there are coach type leaders.
Yeah.
Right. And then not one style works with everybody. Right. Yeah. Some people react better to coaching style. Some people prefer mentors. Some people actually like the manager style, who just like lays out every single thing they want you to do A to Z. I don't personally like that. I hate it. But in your experience, how many leaders can naturally pivot from mentor to coach? Because I know some people are really good at one and not the other. As you know, a mentor does things one way, kind of teaching you how to do it, where a coach kind of helps you find it inside of yourself that you know how to do it and pulls that out of you to give you the confidence to actually do the job.
Yeah.
How many leaders have you taught that you think percentage-wise have both of those skills, like internally, that just it comes naturally to them?
Well, that's great. That's a great, that is, again, the mastery, right? Where we start to understand there are levels to this. Again, we go back to the shooting, right? We're all on the, when we get into, we're all on the range. Hey, there's those, 2 or 3 guys are usually pretty good. And then we train with the SRT and we get smoked, and then maybe we once in a while we train with some SEALs or some Delta guys, and we really get smoked. That's the whole part of real mastery and being humble and understanding. That's where we can pivot. It's folks like General Mattis that was a real student of all of those, understanding tactically, strategically, all these different types of leadership. It's really sad in law enforcement. There's such a need that many of us, and the ones that are getting it, most of them are self-taught. And I haven't met a lot that are really have that mastery yet. And it's interesting, the ones that are really doing it, well, they still have that hunger to get even better. They now have that awareness. Holy crap, I don't know anything, which is really cool. And the ones that really don't get it are the ones that's all about them. It's their ego, and they're so sensitive. Mm-hmm. The guys that are really getting it, they don't care. You want to criticize them and whatever, their only caveat is this: hey, you're welcome to criticize me and complain about something. Just make sure you got the solution. On the other hand, they don't take it personal. These guys that are all, butthurt about like hearing any kind of criticism, clearly we're just ego, and we don't have any kind of mastery of, of leadership at all. And we're not even developing emotional intelligence yet. So we're not even really truthfully should be on the field. But it's there though. It all gets down to what they've been exposed to and what they've been trained on. Again, what I am really, really optimistic about is just, again, nobody's explained, any of this. So again, in the Marine Corps, from you asked, the question is why they do so well is because they start with the enlisted all the way up through general. Right. So they all have the same language. They all have they understand, what it is, it stacks their expectations, and they all train on that. It makes it, you're pretty lethal at that point.
Yeah. Well, training is the key. I'll tell you a funny story. It's a true story. We had a guy, I don't know if you ever heard of him. I know you've been in the training world for a while. A guy named Dave Mather.
Okay.
Excellent leadership coach, leadership instructor. He learned, he originally used to teach IACP's Leadership in Police Organizations course. Okay. He truly lives what he talks about. Like the guy lives everything he preaches in leadership. And he came in because we rolled this out to ATF, to our supervisors, a 3-week course. So some of our leaders were interested in, and when I say leaders, I mean senior executives, were interested in seeing what we would teach in the GS 14s and 15s. So we put on an abbreviated 1-week course for them, and you'll love this. So Dave Mather, the director, comes in, Todd Jones, gives his speech. Dave Mather gives an opener. Then the deputy director speaks very briefly. Another former Marine, Tom Brandon. And then 2 guys, as soon as the director and deputy director leave, 2 guys start folding up their shit and walk out the door. And I'm, at the time, I'm a GS-15. They outrank me. So I'm like, hey, guys, where you going? But there's not much I can do to keep them there.
Right.
And both of them tell me, look, Pete, you're either born a leader or you're not. We're out of here.
Wow.
Yeah. Both were later removed from leadership positions for various fuck-ups. I guess they were proven wrong. Sometimes you can learn something in some of these courses if you're willing to pay attention and put your heart and soul into it and try to absorb some of the things that they're teaching you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, both were removed from course.
Unbelievable. It's not unbelievable. It's not unbelievable. Again, it's someone that inspires me again is General Mattis. His recent book, Call Sign Chaos. I recommend people read that. These nuggets here about always staying lethal and always staying educated and humble. That's the theme. Humble. He was always learning from everyone. Yeah. So that's tragic. One of the best leaders known to man, if he can learn from everyone, and now we've got 2 guys that probably have never been formally trained on leadership say, I can't learn anything.
Right. Yeah. I know they hadn't been formally trained. And the sad part is these were senior executives at ATF.
Yeah. Well, go figure. I mean, again, right now we can do that right now. Every single agency, top down.
Yeah.
We probably won't find. There's 18,000 law enforcement agencies. Give or take a few. We would be hard pressed to find 1,000 really good leaders, like really well trained leaders. I believe they have the heart and the will. And this is when I say that if you're not trained, and have the discipline, we resort to us. What's important to me?
Right.
That's leadership means I have to subordinate my interest, and I can't make excuses. If Pete and Tom are under me and they fail, it ain't on them. It's on me.
Yeah.
But how many times have you heard that? Well, the boss is like, oh yeah, boss, Pete and Tom failed. That's on me. No, Pete and Tom failed, boss. They did it. I told them what to do. No, boss, my fault. I failed. I did not prepare these guys. It won't happen again. We'll correct it. We'll take care of it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you,
we've seen. I'm sorry, Pete.
Yeah, Tommy.
That is the oldest. Right? Success goes to the troops. The failure goes to the leader. Every single day, all the time. I got one more comment, one more sidebar, and we're not going to pay attention to the silly chat. So Beauty came back under a new handle. It's Tony. We all knew it. I don't have time to pay attention to it. Yes, Tony. Yes, Beauty, whatever your name is. You can throw hard questions at the guests or Pete or I. Having a debate in the chat, giving disrespect to the guest is what we were talking about. It was distracting. It's not respectful. That's all. Say what you want to say. We're here about leadership. Monty Bynum is sending a message with Pete Forcelli about leadership that ultimately saves lives of our community members, our men and women in our country, and the people who service our country, both in the military and law enforcement. That's what this is about today. We're not calling out individual names of individual people and say they're not good leaders. That's not what this is about tonight. I'm sorry, Monty, please accept my apologies. It's really disrespectful for someone of your experience and your knowledge and what you're sharing tonight. Pete, same to you and all you've done for this country as a whistleblower, putting your life and your family's life in jeopardy, financially, physically, emotionally. It's just ridiculous. I apologize. I am not going to say anything more again about the chats. We're just going to ignore them. Unless they're valuable, But the trolling, we're gonna just.
You're right, Tommy. I didn't mention the names of the people who failed or who got called out of that room. But Monty, you brought up something that I think it's the most important trait in a leader. And well, there's two. I think one is willingness to learn, but I'd say the one that's more important, and it kind of fits in with it, is humility. You know, I worked for some bosses over the years who I literally, like John Cutter, who was my patrol sergeant in 1987. I still have his number in my phone.
Yes.
I loved the guy because he was a good guy. He was a humble guy. He cared about his people. When he was a patrol sergeant, the way it works in the NYPD, sergeant has a driver, right? Sergeant's operator. Okay. Normally, the guy who's sitting in the passenger seat is the recorder. So he takes all the reports and everything, you know. The driver drives you from place to place. It doesn't always happen that way. When John Cutter, the sergeant, was in that passenger seat, he took all the reports. He did the accident reports. He did the complaint reports. He did the aided cards because he viewed himself as, you know, no better than the person that was driving him around. Yeah. Great boss, made it all the way up to a chief. Loved the guy. Al Matarazzo. A lot of people in the NYPD call him Uncle Al. Another guy, he loved his people. Rose through the ranks. Another guy I would follow into hell. Another guy who I stayed in touch with many, many years. I left the NYPD over 25 years ago. So, I mean, you just don't forget those people. But I think, you know, a lot of people, when certain ranks kick in, humility ticks down. And look, I'm not going to lie. I had a couple of people that made it to the higher ranks of ATF who were wonderful people. Yeah. And as they got higher and higher and higher, they kind of lost themselves. Not all, because some of them were spectacular. Yeah. But there were a couple where you're like, wow, I don't even know that person anymore. And it was like their ego got so big that you couldn't even ask them respectful questions, right? Because it was more like, you know, like, aren't you listening to me? Well, no, I understand what you're saying, but I want to understand the why, because I want to internalize the why. So I'll work a little harder to get to that goal. And going back to what I said earlier, when that is, well, because I'm the director or because I'm the deputy director, well, then, you know, that just doesn't work. Just like pointing at collar brass or slapping the stripes on your sleeves doesn't work. So humility, I agree with you 1,000%. Is just so important. Right.
We call that I call that the emperor has no clothes syndrome. Essentially, mm-hmm. And for me, I didn't understand being a cop and then going to the Marine Corps and then back to being a cop. I saw the value of. I never understood like why in a police department there would be 3 or 4 or 5 folks that would make the decisions and come up with a plan that actually would be fed out to the rest of the patrol or rest of the of the department. And it's not a democracy, I get that, but again, you have all these brains that you could tap into and get and come up with some creative solutions. And again, that's a red flag though if you can't take a little bit of criticism. And that's part of this rift between this next generation is they want to question why, mm-hmm. for what purpose. And it's not them being disrespectful. They just they were trained by us. They're our kids, and we taught them, hey, a good leader can explain to you why we're doing it, and they probably need to, not to earn your respect, but again, just for survivability. If something happens to us, hey, Monty, this is why we're doing this. Is you need to be able to follow on and you make sure hire gets this information. Make sure that we meet. This is the overall objective and what you have to do. But again, that becomes apparent and it is no longer seen as a challenge when we understand the full playbook. Nobody has explained how this really is supposed to work and what not to be offended by and what and how this. And I think if we actually were training people on how this really looks as leadership and our responsibility, it would be different. I think we would be, very successful. So
yeah. I'll tell you a funny story in this. So Monty, you're probably aware at some level. I don't know how deeply you know. In 1994, the New York City had 3 police departments: the housing police, which Pete was a member of, the transit police, which I was a member of, and the NYPD. And after the merger, there was a whole bunch of jockeying and positioning, and you can imagine, with the hierarchies and, there's vernacular that we used to call OPD, the other police departments. There was the NYPD and then the two other police departments, right? And I remember going to Brooklyn North and meeting with the commander in there. And he goes, I came from transit and I kind of appreciated this. He goes, you freaking transit guys, you come in here, we say we want stuff done, we want it done, and you go, why are we going to do this? Why are we going to do that? Why are we going to do this? And then we tell you and we explain it, and then you go out and do it with no. But the NYPD guys, you know what? They come in and go, no problem, boss, and they go out and they don't do anything. And he goes, because they were trained, but it's not their fault. They were trained to just not question.
Right.
And you know what's really funny about everything I'm hearing in that little story is the transit police used to call themselves. We had a lot of Marines. Gene Roach was a Marine. Rest his soul. He passed away last year. Gene Roach used to call the transit police the Marines of the New York City policing agencies.
Oh, that's
so awesome. That's the way he looked at it because he was a Marine.
I love that. That's bad.
But but he said, he goes, the transit guys will come in and they'll challenge the boss and they'll talk back. But then once you explain it, they go out and get it done.
Yeah.
And the NYPD guys, and of course it's generalized. It's not everybody. But he said, but they would just go, okay, no problem, boss. We'll go get that done, and just not do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
So we used to say is housing cops, we patrol the hallways. We used to say it takes balls to walk the halls. That's what we used to
I do remember actually, actually getting a pamphlet. You guys, I actually considered coming up to New York. I do remember that there was three different.
Three. Yeah. That's crazy.
Wow. You did good for yourself, though, my friend. GBI is a great organization.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. I think I made some good choices. I got lucky. 100%. So
yeah.
So give us some good capers, Monty. I mean, we talked about a lot of leadership stuff, and let's talk about some capers that you're involved in that you can share. And I'm sure the leadership stories will weave back into it, with how it was handled and what was going on with them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm not a drug guy. So you said you love drugs. Ron Brooks, a former guest, the father of fusion centers in this country, really a great guy. We argue all the time about murder work versus narcotics work, and clearly all the narcotics work leads to murder, so we kind of are entwined. But I just never really liked it. I only did it for a year. I wasn't a fan of it. So you said earlier that you loved it. Tell us why you loved it. Give us some good capers. Why was it so exciting and so exhilarating?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I mean, I probably should have been killed a couple times. I just literally did every, undercover thing backwards. Back in the 90s, you remember Miami Vice? I just thought I was, too cool for school, couldn't learn from anybody, and I literally did everything wrong. I would put subjects, my informants or suspects behind me, didn't search their bags, while I'm driving, just didn't know where I was. One of my investigations led me from Maryland into Virginia. We were close, but I bought dope in Virginia. I was a certified officer in Maryland, so that was kind of a problem. So, but I was recruited, by the GBI to come in, and I had a lot of wire experience. Then I had written when I was recruited to come over to GBI. Probably by then had written about 15 wires, two federal wires, and the rest that were state wires. So I had an opportunity to come to the drug unit. GBI hadn't done that in a long time. So that was pretty cool. That was very, that was pretty amazing. And I had actually been a TFO with DEA twice. So once when I was a Gwinnett County, detective, and then once when I was a GBI detective. And a lot of people don't know, but Atlanta, Georgia is really, it's a huge hub. It was not uncommon for us to seize, 50, 70, 100 kilos. And you just think, hey, when the first time you seize 100 kilos, you're figuring, hey, there's going to be a parade and, the world's going to stop. Nope. It's okay. We'll get back to work, the next weekend. And one of the second time that I was sent to DEA, by then I had, decided, hey, I need to, I'm older now. I need to develop some other skills because kicking indoors, that's not going to be forever. So that's when I started developing some real experience in money laundering and follow the money. And again, I was noticing that these guys didn't mind sitting down for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. But they really had a heartburn when you took their money. So we started paying attention to their money. I became, I actually became one of the state's experts in money laundering. So the second time I was, sent to DEA, I wasn't there but a week when they said, hey, you're the money laundering expert, aren't you? I'm like, I don't know about that, but okay. Well, myself, another DEA guy, and 2 FBI guys were sent over to Barcelona, which was amazing. I'm like, holy crap, this is very cool. So we had a chance. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term super facilitator. I had never heard of that. But it was a target that was identified by one of the 5 Eyes. And at the time, there were only 5 of these guys in the world. They were laundering billions of dollars, for narco-terrorism and all of that. And we had a chance to interview a source that was just one level down from him. So that was, it was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. Several months later, we catch our target, Kanani, and which led to some very significant hits there. So just it was amazing to be a state agent, deputized as a federal agent, to be able to do all these things. It was just incredible. What you learned is how the pieces really work together, and that's the thing that is kind of missing, is you don't really know how the pieces work, and we're constantly pushed to do 3 buys and a hit, 3 buys and a hit. Well, you don't know how these things are related, and that's the thing that I wish is it was really that it would be explained. How do these things relate, not just to narcotics, but the whole cartel, the whole underworld, and how does this actually relate to our homicide guys? How do we help those guys out? We just are very siloed, and I always wish that we had because DEA has this amazing network of telephone intel.
Yes.
So, SOD.
Yes, SOD. Right.
One of our previous guests was the head of SOD for a number of years, Derek Maltz. I don't know if you ever crossed paths with Derek, but look, I mean, you're working cases that are on the radar of 5 Eye. For the listeners that don't know, those are the 5 intelligence organizations globally that communicate with each other. It's just, ours. I believe it's the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So that's high speed shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd they sneak in? How'd New Zealand sneak in there?
All former Commonwealths of the United Kingdom, my friend.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly. Right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and everything in between. I mean, there we definitely had some amazing cases and some close calls. Things that, again, there's a guardian angel there. Sure. As a task force, person, when you're in the task force, as opposed to a standing drug unit with GBI or PD or anywhere else, you usually have a team that's going to back you up and hit it. But task force, it's just you and maybe 12 other people that you're in blue jeans, and maybe you have a shield, maybe you don't. And there was a lot of times where it was kind of hairy when you think about it afterwards, like, man, maybe we should have had a team here. And to just, again, folks don't know this, but Atlanta is pretty wild. It is infested with the cartel, and they are serious. Many, I can't tell you how many times, literally 3 times we had to go rescue a guy when you're up on a wire.
Yeah.
because this guy's gotten kidnapped and they're telling you, hey, they were going to kill him. I did that twice. Twice we had to go rescue a guy that they're going to go kill him.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
A lot of people don't know this. I didn't know this, candidly, when I was a detective in New York or even an agent in New York. I learned this when I was in Phoenix as a supervisor. Any cartel-related drugs that make their way to north, up all the way up to Maine, or south all the way to Florida, probably touched Atlanta at one point.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, it's now. Here's one case that I thought was just, you guys remember, you remember the movie The Mule with
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. So right about the time, just about the time that it comes out, I have a case that comes to me, and my partner and I, Miguel, we're investigating this case, and the informant says, hey, there's this old guy that's driving from Texas, and he's muling, drugs and money, and da-da-da. Okay, yeah. No, it's a good case. So we vet it all out. Sure enough, we spend a week. This is, in January. It's cold, actually. Believe it or not, it does get cold in Georgia. And we're out there for an entire week. This crew was pretty good. I mean, they had their distribution center. It was an old, auto body repair shop. And we were fortunate that it abut a shopping center. So we would watch that, I think we had 12, folks out there, 24 hours, a day, watching this operation go in. And it was just amazing. Again, the old guy would come in, drive his truck in, take another little Jetta and drive it to the mountains and go, shooting and everything like that. And later on he'd call and they'd take his truck, fill it with all the money, and there he goes.
Yeah.
What we come to find out, this guy had been stopped 72 times in 2 years. That's how good the trap was. And it was in the bed. They had hollowed out, the bed of the truck, and they would stick the kilos in there, and then they would refill it with the money. Amazing.
Do you think he survived so long on the road because he was an older guy too? Do you think that helped him a little bit?
Exactly. And he was just so affable and like, hey, go ahead and search it. Yeah, go ahead. And the dogs were just, it would confuse the trucks, and confuse the dogs. And he explained all this when we got him, and he was like, yeah, I had no, and many of them, and again, they didn't have at the time some of these portable scanning devices, and they didn't really have the PC or the confidence to do further inspection. But again, he said he gotten stopped 72 times in 3 years, and never did he get a hit. So we end up getting him. We get him with $2 million. We got videos of pulling that out and everything. And eventually he says, you know what? I want to be on Team USA. I'm like, great. This is awesome. So we sign him up. I sign him up. And he's convinced, this is the better way to do it. I'm like, all right, we're going to be good. Tells me all the things. His dad used to be a Border Patrol agent who ended up flipping, and that's all he's known for, for his whole life. His whole family basically were corrupt, and he's always been trafficking. Nice old guy. He's cool. All right, cool. But I want to be Team USA. All right, cool. Because I seized all the money from his wife's account and his son's account and everything, because he would drop in money as he would come up. Okay, great. So he leaves. He goes back to Texas, and he's doing everything he's supposed to, checking in. And one day I get the phone call. Hey, Agent Bynum, look, the cartel is called, and they say they need me to go to Mexico. I'm like, now imagine that, Pete. You get that phone call, and your informant says, and I'm like, what can I do? Like, and I'm like, I don't think you should go.
Right.
He's like, I don't think you understand.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way. He's like, I either go on my own accord or they come and get me.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, I just, what's the dilemma? I'm like, I don't really think and we're scrambling. He's like, I got to go. So it's 2 days of just kind of hell and stressing out, like, oh crap, and by even if we wanted to, by the time we scrambled to some guys out there in DEA, they're, he was already on the road.
Yeah.
So 2 days is stressing out. Next thing you know, I get the phone call and, hey, I'm fine. I just want to let you know, the boss there was so apologetic. He knew I had nothing to do with it. He wanted to, he was so upset. He said that crew was really bad. They were sloppy. The crew was pretty good. If they were any better, they would have caused, multiple times. We just got lucky. And he said, look, they're buying me a brand new truck. They're getting me set up again. And I just wanted to, you were fair with me. I'm going to be fair with you. I just found out also that I have cancer. I'm going back to the other team. And I just wanted to be fair with you. I'm like, I guess, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, man. I got to ask you this. Look, you're now running a training company, a successful one. And I know that, I thought about doing something along those lines. I don't have the academia behind me to do it. I candidly don't have, that kind of training to go out there and instruct. But I know that's a lot of work and a lot of hustling. But you were a money laundering specialist.
Yeah. Which
pays pretty well. I mean, there's tons of jobs out there in banks and out there in the private sector. I got to ask, man, why go into leadership when you could have made a small killing on top of your pension doing money laundering work? Is leadership that much of a passion for you?
It absolutely is. And my passion now is really running businesses. We have 5 different businesses. And so we saw the need. There was another company before us that was actually bigger. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. There were some things that happened. But what it did expose was there was a need. And we saw that we got asked by some friends that were in that space and that were training, hey, would you consider building another company kind of, that big and kind of focused on top tier training? And that's what we went out and did. My partner and I, he's a Philly, sergeant out there. Really fortunate to be working with him, shout out to Danny. That was what we were going to do, was focus on the very best of the best. And so we have folks that, most of them are still active, still doing the job, with years and years, a ton of years on. We have several that have their PhD, several that have written books. They just don't talk about it. They've written books and they're doing it. So imagine being able to deliver that all throughout the country. And so that's what we set out to be. We are a different breed. You and I, everybody on here, we're a different breed. And so that's the mantra that we set out. ADB stands for a different breed training company. And we want to bring top tier training, not, again, with the philosophy of it's not just information, we want to transform you. So you take that information, you should be able to go day one and actually execute and do some things and have some impact.
So is it strictly leadership training, or is it all different sorts?
It's all things. It's everything. Oh, wow. So it's cool. Yeah. No, and that's just something that is, that kind of developed. And we have several guys that actually do. What's really neat is small unit and lower level leadership. We have mid level, and we have some executive. I do a lot of the executive level leadership now and some consulting on that, just as a passion, really, as like you said. As I'm reminded multiple times by my CEO, we cannot afford you to be doing that. That's you do that on your off time. You got a job to do. Running other businesses, and she stays on me about that. But I am passionate, just like you, Pete. I know that's the fix. I know that when you guys are given the tools and the understanding and the training, I don't want them to go be running outside of our industry. The fix is inside. We have the talent. We do that a lot. We acquiesce to talent on the outside because we're constantly being attacked and asking for permission from our bosses. They don't know what they're talking about. Hey guys, what does community policing mean?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. We do
Nobody
that.
Knows.
So Robert Peel, against
1809, baby. Right, 1809.
All the way back. But we had a different, again, it's like that was policing essentially in New York, right? Yeah. And so it was a different philosophy. Community policing is essentially what we're doing now, again, and what we should aspire to a higher level of customer service. It just depends on where we're at. We do that anyway, whether it's in the car or walking. These things that we don't understand the concepts, Why are we going to all these barbecues and birthday parties? We think again, we don't understand. Like some of them are been told like by these civilian experts, hey, if you just go to more and hug these guys and be more fuzzy, they're going to love you the next time you have to shoot somebody. No, that's not true.
They're not.
What they really want is you to be at the top tier level professional and be a straight shooter. Here's why we had to shoot, little Johnny, because he was carrying a MAC-10 and he pointed it at a cop. And unfortunately, that's what happens. And
so straight shooting
and professional. And by the way, don't, when you arrest somebody, act like you've been there.
Right.
Don't take extra shots. You're an amateur. Act like you've been there. Come on, guys.
Exactly. So I want to make an analogy into the detective bureau because I watched thousands of interviews. I didn't participate in thousands of interviews, but I did watch thousands of interviews. Yeah. And every cop who tried, especially white guys with African-American perpetrators or suspects, I should say, they tried to get like all, and they were like, and every single time, Monty, Pete, you know this, if the guy went in there and just acted plain and said, this is who I am, I'm the cop, this is the situation, we need to talk.
Yep.
The ones that go, come on, brother, let's go, we got to talk. They were like, get the fuck out of here. You're so full of shit. You are so full of shit. And so the detective bureau analogy to the patrol analogy of going and hugging everybody at a barbecue, when you're really not embracing what is really happening and being honest with them and just telling them the truth, that's the way I see it. So thank you.
Here's the other thing too is,
am I right on this? Do you guys agree?
Yeah. Here's the thing, like for what I ask these chiefs is, because they don't know, they've just been told, well, this is what you need to do. Why community policing and all these community relations? And I always challenge folks now, for what purpose? Remember what our mission is. We've forgotten our mission. So why do we go to barbecues and as the police? One, we want to show professional image, and two, we want to gather intel. Let's just go what it is. And by the way, Miss Jones knows me because I'm showing up. I'm being, very nice to her. And she's like, hey, before you go, Officer Bynum, I just want to let you know about this, house. It smells like chemicals all the time. Oh,
yep.
If we were more intentional, because you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. You're not going to get goodwill. They're not going to be like, hey, I'm sorry, Pete, Pete's guy shot somebody 14 times. And because you went to all these barbecues, you get a mulligan. It's not going to happen. But somehow the folks on the outside, the civilian that have never been trained, never walked in your shoes, have convinced us that that's what's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Just be professional ultimately and stop pandering to things that don't really matter and worrying about that one or two that are in the corner that are never going to be happy. Be professional. Be highly professional. We're being amateur. And we're trying to say we're being professional. We're doing the best we can. Is that right?
No. But buddy, I'll tell you something. People have asked me, like, if you can go back and do your 35-year career over again, what would be the one job you would want? I'm not going to lie. One of the jobs I love was being in charge of the Miami office for a number of reasons. I had a great team. Wow. But the truth is, walking a beat in the projects.
Wow.
I knew what kid belonged to which parent.
Yeah.
I treated people with respect. And look, there were times where I kicked a little bit of ass here and there.
Yeah.
But because I treated people with respect, there were times where the community almost helped me handcuff people.
Yep.
I mean, because they knew me. You were there all the time. I knew their names. You knew my names. I was invited to birthday parties. I was invited to weddings. I had a few fathers try to marry me off to their daughters. That's just how it was. But I mean, like, you belong there. So they knew you. So if they like, hey, that guy's a good guy. So if he's smacking that kid around, it's because that kid deserves it. Like, there was that level of trust.
Yep.
When we walked away from community policing, I think that went away a lot. And I agree with you. A lot of people don't know what community policing truly means. Right. It means that you have to be there. When you're just rolling up in a sector car, doing stuff, and then you're leaving, you don't know people. They don't trust you. In some ways, they view you as almost like an occupying army. And that's one thing that I'll say, like the housing police did very well, was they did community policing. You walk the beat alone in the projects, which means, and you know this, man, you need to know how to talk to people. Because you're dealing with situations, you're dealing with family disputes sometimes. And I know we were supposed to wait till we had backup. Sometimes you couldn't.
Right.
You're going in there and you're sorting things out. And that requires a ton of humility. It requires a ton of trust. And it was sad to see us go in different directions. And I argue that sometimes, not necessarily the NYPD, there's all these flavors of the day. There's community policing. No, we're going to go intelligence-led policing. We're going to do this other sort of policing, predictive policing. And in many ways, they let go of the stuff that worked to chase the new shiny ball.
Right. Right.
And I think, hey, man, retain what works and add some of those little things on as layers, but don't give up the thing that was really the most important tool that you had, and that was the trust in the community.
Well, you hit it, you hit it earlier, and Tommy hit this also too. It's being authentic. We are so not authentic. I want you to believe that policing is not rough. It doesn't get, dirty. It doesn't get, physical. I want you to believe that I'm going to rub your tummy and scold you and put you in timeout, and that's as bad as it's going to get.
Right.
And I want to lie to you, because essentially that's really what you're doing is, yeah, we can do, we can do all these things, and these tasers, and guys, we will talk to people to death and do whatever we can do. And we don't want to shoot anybody, but we damn well better be ready for the fight and to, get that over as quickly as possible, and stop with this stuff about again, let's be professional. If we need to investigate, then let's do it at the highest level. We need to de-escalate and know how to communicate. Let's do it at the highest level. Document. Our report writing sucks. All these things that we can do much better. We're hanging in there, but we can do so much better if we were really serious. If we really invested, and that's going to be the solve. I mean, it gets down to it. A lot of people will throw this powerful thing out. Well, it's racism. I'm driving and Pete pulls me over, and naturally that's what's going to happen. It wasn't that Pete, you just got out of the academy, he didn't have many tools. I want to have a debate. I want to have the court case right there, because that's what I saw on YouTube.
Right.
Why do you need my thing? No, get me as your supervisor. Well, Pete has run out of his tools. It's not that he's racist. He doesn't have any more training. And that's what people don't understand, because their experiences, it's from TV.
Yes.
They're watching NCIS and FBI and all those other things. And, they see these actors, they give a command and it's solved. Even when they're arguing, it's pretty tame, and it's like, that's not very professional. And they assume that's how it's supposed to be. They could never fathom that these guys are so underprepared.
Oh yeah.
They could never fathom, like, what do you mean you don't get any more training? You get 20 hours a month, or 20 hours. Wow, I wish it was a month. 20 hours a year. What do you mean?
Right. Yep.
That's crazy.
That's like the people when you see these use. Look, and I get it. Policing isn't always pretty, but it's always necessary, right? And then look, maintaining order is also not always pretty. Restoring order once you've lost it is also much uglier than maintaining order. Like we know that too. But what blows my mind is how the general public thinks that all cops are supposed to be somehow experts in like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something, because they don't realize, like, you can take up Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? Or they can teach you that in the academy, but if you're not doing it all the freaking time, then it'll still go away.
Right.
I mean, to your point, though, yeah. Or even with the Brown University, like people, even the media was so frustrated. Like, why isn't there an arrest yet? They literally think that it's like Gibbs calls that girl Abby the nerd, and she runs like 70 different databases and comes up with 3 suspects like in 2 seconds, and then they just go and eliminate like the other 2 to find the one bad guy.
But to your point, they also, like, they were in an uproar about Flock technology a year before that. And guess what? We can't have it both ways, boys and girls. We got to pick up poison. And, again, yes, I get it. And we want to straddle that with our rights and privacy. And also that's a cost. So there's these things, but no one's explaining these and they're, no leadership. And again, the elected leadership up there, that was embarrassing. That was, God.
Well, how about the president of the college? She makes $3.2 million
all the way through. All the way through. I know where I'm committing crimes. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Monty, I want to raise something that you just mentioned, because Pete and I talked about this in the past. Both of our kids are in law enforcement. You said the last thing we want to do is shoot somebody.
Yeah.
And when my son graduated the DC Metro Police Department Academy in 2019, his sergeant had a great speech. He said, you're not going to solve all the problems, all these politicians, all this stuff going on. Just solve the problem in front of you. Take care of the person right in front of you. It's very tactical. It's not strategic for you. Just get out there and say that. And so I pulled them aside and I said, your job, from everything that I learned, was to get home. Do not hurt anybody. Do not get hurt. That's it. Don't hurt anybody. If you have to hurt somebody, you got to hurt them.
Yeah.
But you don't. But my point is you don't want to do that. You'll only do it as a last resort. Yeah. And that was the point. Is because what we want. Nobody good wants to go out and look to hurt somebody.
No, you're exactly right. But I think also like we have really trained these guys, and I believe me, guys. You know, I hear what you're saying, but I'm taking a look at like where you're, you know, look at when we all came in, it was different. Yeah. But now we swung the complete, you know, opposite. I'm seeing cops getting hurt because they're afraid to handle business. Right. That's just not me talking, because I'm not a guy, I don't run my mouth. However, you will never put your hands on an agent while I'm in the room. It's going to be a bad day. It's never going to happen. If you do, I promise you, it's going to be a friggin' bad day. And that's just like, and we're going to get it over. We're going to handle business, and then we're going to be done. But you don't do that. We don't do that. And they are so afraid that we can't defend it. Like, hey, we were there lawfully and doing our jobs. This guy decided to threaten us and hurt us, or he attempted to hurt us, and we defended ourselves. They're actually second guessing. It's going in their OODA loop. Well, can I do this? Oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not sure. Am I going to get sued? Oh my God.
But Monty, let me ask you this: in our time, I know that chiefs were always somewhat political. Yeah. But I mean, when you look at recent events and you look at some of the things that come out of the mouths of the top person in, you know, any number of police departments
in Minnesota.
Yes, your head.
I had a little thing about that.
Your head must spin. And look, I got news for you. There was a female police chief from, I believe, Ohio, who came out with pretty much the same spiel, which is like, it absolutely blows my mind when police chiefs when they become so political that you can't tell them apart from the politician, and sometimes even when they're wearing their uniform. I mean, that's one thing that I never dealt with as a cop. And look, we also had mayors. During my tenure, I was there under Koch all the way up into I left the NYPD before Bloomberg came in. But look, Koch was a Democrat. Koch supported cops. Dinkins, I don't think, cared one way or the other, but he wasn't like as really anti-cop, I don't think. Right. Now you have politicians that will feed a cop into the wood chipper just to get a vote, and you have police chiefs that would gleefully go along with it. And that's just what really blows my mind. But yeah, that guy in Minnesota, really, really disappointed. And look, I mean, I get it. Some of the laws that are on the books federally, people might not like, but they're the law. Right. You know, I mean,
and the bottom line, it was not my, you know, I made a post about it. It wasn't my contention about like whether you like it or don't like it or anything. The bottom line is you insinuated almost that they were unlawfully there and not doing, and they were a gang and they were kidnapping. Putting again doubt in our citizens' minds that perhaps they might even resist, which then puts them in jeopardy. The citizens. Correct. That's irresponsible. Okay, and if you believe that, then you better have the fortitude to go have the talk with these federal agents and have the communication. But to say that outwardly was only done for a political reason, and I stand by that. It's not. And then you put these officers in the jackpot of, oh my God, I'm here, just like we did in Chicago. We had the deputy chief there, you know, countermand, you know, a request by ICE for help. And then the chief goes back and says, oh no, that didn't happen. Oh yes, it did, because it was on the CAD system and we hear the audio. Yes, it did. Yeah. So this is because you guys are running around listening to the mayor instead of, you know, sitting saying, we're not doing that. If you call for help, we're coming. You can all debate about whether or not that's lawful and this all nonsense. But as a law enforcement officer, whether it's a dog catcher, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're carrying a badge and a gun, we're coming for you.
Right, right. And look, I mean, but think about the slippery slope, right? So, all right, you don't like the nation's immigration laws. So,
Right.
okay, let's just say, for argument's sake, somebody finds that to be, acceptable. What about parts of the country where they want to legalize all drugs? So DEA is doing a search warrant and they're taking fire. Do you not show up because, well, it's DEA. I don't agree with that. Or ATF. A lot of people hate the gun laws in this country. Believe me, I know. It's called every name in the book. Or tax laws. I'm not a huge fan of our tax laws. So if IRS criminal investigations is getting shot at by a guy they're going after who happens to be some cartel dude laundering money, do we say, well, hey, it's IRS criminal investigations.
Right.
Let them rot. No, it's horrible leadership.
Right.
Well, isn't everything you're saying then mean that police officers don't have to respond to cross complainants? If two people are beating each other up and assaulting each other without any shooting at each other, one drug dealer shooting another drug dealer, we just let it go.
Right.
Like you still keep the peace. You still break it up. If somebody needs help, you respond. Just to get.
Look, I'm a retired guy, and if I see a cop need help, I'm going to get out of the car and do what I can do to help.
100%. And again, the fact that a mayor who's never worn a gun or a badge could convince you to say something like, "Hey, essentially, guys, we're not going to respond," has nothing to do about whether you agree or anything. That we're not going to essentially respond, or is disgusting. To your point, guys, again, so I don't agree with the way Minnesota, polices. So the county out there, we're not going to respond to that. This is baby. This is childish. This is not leadership.
Right.
Grow up and grab a pair and
or
retire, because
exactly.
You're auditioning for your next, your job, and this is poor performance. A lot of these guys are doing this instead of saying, Mr. Mayor, I understand your position, but we are sworn to uphold the law. And number one, we have a brotherhood. We have a culture that we're going to trust each other, and we're going to help each other, and we're going to support each other, because when it gets down to it, every member of law enforcement, really, that's what we love. That's what we're going to do. Right. But now this chief, again, so separated, Pete, I think you brought it up. The separation. I asked these chiefs when I talked to them, hey, how often do you get on the road? Now, the guys that we actually are working with, and they're part of our mastermind and our leadership collective. I mean, they're big agencies. I've got, Little Rock, Arkansas. They're getting out there. Mm-hmm. Whether it's once a week, maybe once a month, they're still getting out. They're still connected to the core mission. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So these other guys, I've had other chiefs that was like, no, it's beneath me. It's amazing, unbelievable. They forget what the mission is. We're police officers, not administrators. There's no such thing as an administrator, cop.
Yeah. My daughter was an ATF agent who left ATF for that very reason, Monty. She had a special agent in charge who her and her colleagues would be like, because they all frequented this place right across the street from the office that had really good sandwiches. Nice. And they would see their boss, and they'd be walking back to the office. He'd be walking to the restaurant to get his lunch, or vice versa. And they'd say, "Hey, good morning, boss." And he would look at them and not even respond, because he was a SAC, and they were just field agents. It was beneath him to say good morning back. Well, so he's retired now, and she went to another agency because she was turned off.
Unbelievable. And again, we're losing talent because of that, because we're an idiot. Because someone said, I've heard chiefs, tell me this. Hey, I don't know if this is right. They're literally, then they ask me, like, is this right? Someone told me that I can't really be approachable. I need to have a distance because I may have to. That's for a weak leader.
Yes.
You need to tell me you can't tell someone, hey, I've got some bad news. I'm going to, break it to you. And by the way, it means you're not going to hold a grudge. Hey, Pete, here's, and by the way, I gotta do this. We set these things. You didn't meet these, and we talked about it. And here's the discipline. By the way, let's get it on track, and then it's done.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. You'll love it. When I went down to the Miami Field Division, there was a period where if an agent wanted to come talk to management, they had to put on a suit and come down to the second floor. The agents all sat on the third floor. We sat on the second floor. That ended when I got there.
Nice.
Where you don't have to put on a suit to come downstairs and talk to me. Yeah. The other thing is that the special agent in charge that preceded me never showed his face on the third floor. So me and the gentleman who was my special agent in charge for a short time before I took over, When we walked around on the 3rd floor, people were shitting their pants because they're like, oh, what the fuck's happening? When we were just going up there to find out, hey, what's going on? How you guys doing? What do you need? You know, get to know them a little bit. Right. It blew their minds because for 14 years before that, the SAC wouldn't show his face on the 3rd floor. It was beneath him to walk around and walk his work. The guys who were doing the work, putting themselves in harm's way to make him look good, he didn't have the time to go up there and talk to them.
For all the look, for all the chiefs and deputy chiefs and all the aspiring, leaders out there, you guys were probably like me. Can you imagine a boss, a real, a top tier boss showing up when we first started and pouring into us? I used to dream about. I didn't dream about celebrity. I was man. That'd be awesome if the chief or deputy chief would come in and acknowledge me and kind of give me some words of wisdom to live on and aspire to.
Yeah,
these guys are like, you forget yourself. We are the best leaders. Then we should be showing some humility and, be able to reach out to these guys. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if they did that.
Yeah. Yeah. It has impact. It has huge impact.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, this job could be this career, there's so much potential. Again, we've been doing it wrong. Again, we've been doing it as amateurs. The amateurs don't get any training. They don't protect they don't perfect their craft. They just get out there and, some are naturally good and they just go off of talent, natural talent. Professionals, they get coaches, they train, they keep holding these standards, they keep, chopping the wood, and they keep getting after it. And that's, imagine where this is going to be if we really put in the time, we convince, a core element, hey, there's a better way of doing this. And we start really training and developing leaders. Yep. We won't lose talent like your daughter.
Right.
That's real talent. There's legacy there that she was born for this.
Yeah, and now she's working for another federal agency that they treat her great, and she's working hard for them. So I mean, how you treat people matters.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
So, hey,
hey guys.
Speaking of amateur, Tommy, I need a 2-minute break because
well, we're gonna go do that, buddy. Okay, we're gonna start wrapping up in so it's 8:52. Everybody, really appreciate it. Got good viewership going on here. So Monty, you got a couple of businesses. I'm gonna put some banners up on the screen. We got Monty Bynum, MontyBynum.com. Yep. It's on the screen, scrolling by, montybynum.com. Tell us about montybynum.com, and then we'll do ADB training, the next one.
Yeah, I mean, this is the consulting and coaching, leadership consulting, page and business that we have. We've kind of, again, through the last year, chiefs reaching out and saying, hey, look, can you help us? Absolutely. We're going to help everybody we can. Definitely humble to be working with some amazing leaders. What's really cool is the folks that are asking for help. They're getting it. They understand. They already have, they're going in the right direction. They want to step on the gas. They want to start lapping people and start lapping agencies. There's some agencies out there. They're on waiting lists. People are dying to work for their agency because they're creating, an unbelievable culture that people are like, hey, I want to work there. I mean, look what's going on with Fort Worth. I'm going to shout out to those guys and changing the culture rapidly where, hey, come be a cop here. Not only does the chief support you to be a cop, but so does the mayor. That was an amazing, advertisement that they're doing. Yeah. That's just, very cool.
So Ron Lason's asking, did you ever pitch the NYPD? Do you ever have a conversation on leadership development courses or at least some sort of training with the trainer courses?
No, not yet. As I understand, there's it's a serious process. And again,
very much so.
Yeah, it's a very serious process. So we may,
we'll talk. We can talk offline. We'll figure that out. And then we got what's the difference between Monty Bynum and ADB training?
So ADB training is again, like I said, ADB training is we have all those instructors there that teach everything, instruct everything from undercover operations to report writing to cryptocurrency, crimes against kids, all that. Some of the best, trainers out there, in the world. So it's and the
Awesome.
Monty Bynum is the consultancy that we just
Right. Got it. Okay. So everybody, MontyBynum.com, and then we have ADB training. Everything is in the chat and on the screen. We are going to go to, I have one more picture I got to bring up. Look at this guy. Who's that guy? Tell everybody.
I actually had hair.
Yeah.
I actually had hair. Yeah, this is it's my hometown agency of Newcastle County Police Department. It's a fantastic agency. It really, was learned a lot. One of the best, mentors. One of the worst case of leadership there, and one of the best. Joe Bryant was one of the best leaders that I've ever had the pleasure and honor of learning from. I didn't know crap from crap, and it really took me under his wing and really helped me, because there was a period there that I was just, again, you're young and dumb and don't know what you're really doing and why you're doing it, and you're making a lot of mistakes. I was getting into a lot of good stuff, but also making some mistakes, because I just, that's something that you guys probably remember. We had a lot more mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have that here. It's kind of, we treat it as a job. You come in, clock out. When I started, it was definitely a career. It was definitely a profession. It was definitely, it was a calling. Now it's kind of treated more corporately, and it's just a job.
Yeah. I wonder how much.
Okay, so Monty, I'm sorry. Pete,
I wonder how much that, Monty, is because, look, when I came on the job, man, like when I first got into the detective bureau, I worked with guys that were around in the Serpico days. They were literally guys who had 35, 38 years on a job.
Damn, that's
now
cool.
You can't find too many people in the police department in its entirety that has more than 20, 25 years on the job.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why some of the mentorship kind of died out, is because you don't have that longevity. You don't have those old timers who are around to really mentor young folks anymore. It's kind of like you're being taught by a guy that's got 1 or 2 years on a job. So I wonder how much of that factors into it, but you're entirely correct with everything you just said.
Yeah. Imagine. I mean, again, you're exactly right. All across all these agencies. I know GBI got decimated. Again, you guys took a lot of us, but it was our own fault, because we were very vulnerable. We didn't pay well. We didn't do some other things. Our leadership was lacking. And then here comes all these federal agencies asking for these agents that were perfectly primed to go, and we didn't protect.
Okay, so listen, guys, we promoted, Pete, while you stepped away, we promoted Monty's businesses and his websites and his training and consultancy business. Monty, you and I talked yesterday, and we said, listen, we'll talk about some problems, we'll talk about some of those solutions, but Ron Layson brings up here, the NYPD does not teach leadership, and as a former executive and his partner, a deputy chief, it teaches cover your own ass and process and procedure of rank. So in final thoughts, as we wrap up, we're 2 hours in. We talked about all the problems. We talked about what's going on in the country. Tell the cops becoming supervisors, the supervisors becoming executives, the executives today. What can they do better? It's up to them. If they hear it, they hear it. If they take the advice, they take the advice. But at least they need to hear it. What can they do, Monty?
I mean, we got to learn. We got to learn and educate ourselves on, follow good mentors again, and start educating yourself on what are the great examples of leadership, and taking care of our people. Again, I come back to General Mattis's book, Call Sign Chaos. Start reading anything you can on folks, like Jocko that's thrown out several times, but that's a good starting point. And really what it gets down to is that we are responsible for our people. They are not employees. They are not Walmart employees. They're looking for us for guidance, cover. Okay, we are responsible for taking care of them. Sometimes we're going to have to take the arrows for our guys. Okay, and a lot of bosses, unfortunately, are throwing our people under the bus. That's horrible. We should never do that as leaders. Okay, whether you have to take them around the corner and and correct them, then that's what we do. But we don't throw our people under the bus. We also don't cover, for them. We hold them accountable, but we have to train them. If we don't train them and we don't interact with them, it's on us. That's totally on us. So again, the biggest thing is get down and get into the weeds with our people. I mean, all of it. Like if you're a chief, get down into the weeds, get back to the road. If nothing else, not to show as a photo op, but get on the road, get connected back to the essence. If you're a chief of detectives, get back into the bullpen, find out what's really going on and get in, mix it up with your guys. What do they need? Okay. What are they not getting? Because by the way, in between there, we fall into this whole thing of the emperor has no clothes. The boss will ask, maybe we have a motivated boss and he thinks, well, I got to stay out. I don't want to micromanage, which is BS. It's really inspecting what's going on, make sure the communication line is open, get into the weeds and find out. He's going to find out, well, you know what? I had no idea you needed the flux capacitor or whatever. Well, Pete's like, I've only been asking for a year and a half. Well, damn, it never got back. But the guy in between thought, well, I don't want to upset the boss because he started talking about money. And now the boss realizes, shit, I miscommunicated the priority. And that's the boss's, responsibility to get down and make sure that the communication, their commander's intent is clear and inspects and says, hey, that wasn't my intent. It was not to freak out you guys about money. It was just be mindful, okay? Don't be going off and putting in for every stupid training, because we really have essential things we need. We need bulletproof vests. We need other things, blah, 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 blah. And it's not micromanage. It's just get into the weeds, get connected to our guys. And remember, leadership is personal.
Yep. Well, I have a little transit story. Before Bill Bratton was famous for re-engineering the NYPD with Jack Maple, he was the transit police chief, came down from Boston, and there was an anti-crime citywide plainclothes unit in the New York City Transit Police in 1991. And Bob Abraham was the inspector and Bratton was the chief, and they came in to address some disgruntled employees, and those transit cops, true to their form as the Marine Corps of the police departments, told Bob Abraham, the inspector, you need to grab a helmet and a bat and get in the game because you don't know what you're talking about.
Nice.
And that was in 1991.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
With that, Pete, any final thoughts? Monty, thank you so much. Really a great conversation. I can't wait to watch it myself, just to listen more, and because I was a little distracted by some craziness tonight, but it's all in good fun, and that's what it is, and we welcome it. But Pete, final thoughts. Monty, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's great to get to know you guys.
Well, final thoughts, man. Like Monty summed it up best. If I were to put it into a sentence, a leader serves those under him, not the other way around. Right. So yeah, and listen, like I said, I was very blessed in the tail end of my career to sit through a lot of really great leadership courses and to meet some really great leaders, both military and law enforcement, and keeping track of that. Familiar with people's reputations as leadership instructors, and we had one of the best of them on this podcast tonight. So Monty, I want to thank you for coming on here. I hope our paths cross in the future. Your reputation is stellar, and you showed us why tonight. So thank you for what you've done for our country as a Marine, especially as a 9/11 survivor myself. And I know there's plenty of us listening. And thanks for what you continue to do for our profession, because our profession's hurting. And it needs people who give a shit about it like you to help resurrect it from the dead. So thank you for being on the show, and thanks for what you do. And again, I hope one day you and I meet in person, because I would love to have a beer. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Absolutely, 100%. And by the way, I hate that just hurt my heart when you said that, that our profession is hurting. Okay. Hey, boys and girls out there, we've taken some shots, but we're going to take it to people now. I'm tired of people, laying into us. I am absolutely tired of it. Okay. And, if our elected leaders and our professional leaders don't have the fortitude to step forward and correct the messaging, put your badge, in the desk drawer, and we'll come and get it. You don't have the moral authority to be leading. You owe more to these people that are putting their butts on the line every single day. And guys and girls, everything I can in my power, I'm going to do to try to help this in some way. You guys, Tommy, Pete, thank you so much for bringing light to this and helping change our industry. I really, really appreciate it, guys.
No, we love it. Thank you. Thank you, Monty. All right, everybody. Thanks. I am going to the outro. We have Ron and Rob tomorrow are doing a replay. I believe it's Ron's interview with the Finest Unfiltered on replay tomorrow night at 5:05. And then don't forget Sal Greco today. He had a former member of the service on, and he's 1:05 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then Finest Unfiltered is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:05 a.m. with Eric, John, and Marlon. And tomorrow, I think there's going to be a roundtable. We'll see who gets on tomorrow, but we appreciate it. Everybody, thanks. Watch the outro. We got all of the connections, all of the notifications, how you can reach us, and we'll see you. Please be safe. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
God bless.
All right. Thanks, Monty. Monty, you can stay on. We can do a green room after.
Cool. Awesome.